Hey, it's another quick overview for getting started for 2025, being creative with drawing, painting with watercolors. Today we're going to focus on the things you're going to need and consider using when getting started with watercolor. I have a lot of supplies on my tabletop, things for you to consider, and it is a confusing, way too many options for you to consider, and I'll hopefully give you kind of an overview of what I like and how I work with whatever it is. So, and even from the point of view of me as an instructor and what my students will use in a classroom setting with me, in a watercolor course. So let's get started and we'll look at the range of supplies and things for you to consider and work with. So, all right, and as you can see, down here on my tabletop, I have a whole range of very confusing looking things. So right now, first with watercolor, you essentially have two options here. It depends on which direction you're kind of wanting to do. Maybe you've had experience painting with acrylics and oils and that kind of a medium. I kind of made that transition from college doing acrylic and oil painting. And then I discovered wet media through working with gouache, designer's gouache, which is an opaque watercolor, which means essentially you can paint with it just like an oil and acrylic, and it is an opaque medium. So the thicker you mix it, you can mix it just like oil paints and acrylic paints and paint it onto boards and illustration and paper. And it looks just like an oil painting or whatever. Now, designers use it mainly because they may be doing artwork that has to be reproduced. And designer's gouache dries to a very flat surface. It reflects no shine. It has no sheen or anything to it. So it's easy to photograph and put up and have a duplicate made that can then be reproduced. So graphic designers and illustrators have used designer's gouache for a long time, and it can be used in that very thick and opaque manner like an oil or an acrylic, or it can, and I developed and worked with the techniques with gouache where I'm doing both. I have the thick mixtures and I can thin it down, and that's kind of what led me to transparent watercolor, is that I started painting with gouache in a more watercolorish manner where it became more and more transparent. So gouache is kind of a nice bridge medium between the understanding you might have of how to paint with oil and acrylic and moving into a more watercolorish manner. So I worked with gouache for years and years, and I even have this little set here on the tabletop, and it's and as graphic designers, we're very familiar with the CMYK. So cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and there's even a white up here. These are Holbein gouaches, and this one here is Winsor Newton. Used both for years, and they're very good. They're kind of pricey, but they're good medium. They're good pigment in the things, and they don't granulize too much when you get real thin. So that definitely are some nice gouaches to consider. I also have a little set. Actually it's this set right here. 10 colors from M. Graham, and they give you essentially this nice little packet of colors right there with a range. You got your blues, your reds, greens, some earth tones, yellow, purple in there. So that's a nice set. I also have black, I have the white, opaque white, and that's a good starter kit right there. That'll get you up and running with some better tube paints. So that's another thing to consider as well, is working with tubes versus pans. And I have a number of pans here. I have a Winsor Newton. I haven't even used this set. It's a nice little Cotman set, which is kind of a student grade version for Winsor Newton. And then I have a metal pan set, bigger color set. So I've used this one quite a bit. You can see I've even have filled some of the pans up. The thing with pans is you can maybe find some cheap pans and this and that, but the problem is, can you buy replacement colors once you've used up, because you don't use your colors evenly. You'll run out of certain colors before your rest of your set is done. So whatever set you're doing with pans, just make sure you'll be able to buy individual pans and replace the colors in the ones that you use the most of, or be able to squeeze. I actually buy spare pans, right, like this, little empty pans, and then if I run out, or if I want to supplement, get more colors, you can just bring them in and expand your color set with these extra colors like this. So, or maybe you want to put a little dab of water in there, and that'll be your place to mix. The nice thing about pans is that you have individual spaces where you can mix your colors, and even in this one, you can even lift out the pan or the colors right there, and you'll have even additional little mixing bowls down here as well. So of course, with the metal pans, if you use them a lot and you don't clean them frequently, they'll get rusty, and this one gets kind of nasty. So I don't normally pull it out too often unless I'm really, I've worked with this in studio, but these are kind of nice for when you're doing plein air painting and stuff like that. So that's the upper end, and the middle student grade end right here with the Cotman watercolors. Or you can even get a small, this is a fairly cheap little small pan, and I've done a lot of watercolors with this. You don't need a lot of colors if you know your color theory. So working with your primary colors, your secondary colors, and your tertiary colors, with throw a black and a shade and a tint, your black and white into it, and you'll be able to do about anything that this large set right here would be able to do. So it really just tests your ability to mix colors if you have a limited color palette. So, and again, with CMYK graphic designers, this is essentially the printing process that printing presses work with. I think I was going to talk about that earlier and I got sidetracked. Yeah, the big printing presses, anything you see, magazines, brochures, pamphlets that are printed, they're typically printed with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black to create the illusion of full color in the printed document. So if technically, because everything you see in a printed newspaper, brochure, pamphlet like that, a magazine, use only these 4 colors to create the illusion of full color. So you could only have to buy your cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and your golden. I would also throw in a tint in there, your white. So if you wanted to recapture some highlights, or maybe just add some tints, knock down the saturation, the intensity of the color by introducing a tint, that would work too. So this is a good little set, nice little student grade, and again, it does the same thing. You should be able to, in theory, lift this out of the pan. Sometimes it fights you to do it, but I just cleaned it up the other day. So I typically will work with this, and it gets all soggy in there, and I'll forget to clean it out. So I actually cleaned it out. It's all nice and fresh and ready to go. And then lastly, I have this. I was stunned when I just happened to buy these. This set here, it's a prang set, right? Prang. I mean, you've probably seen that for years as a kid in your art classes, maybe in grade school and junior high or stuff like that. But I was surprised at this little prang set. This is fairly old too. I think it's got new updated graphics and stuff on it. And you can get them in either ovals or rectangles. I think this is a rectangular set. But my students in my watercolor classes, I'll recommend this to them and or hand them out to them. I'll buy these like a classroom pack, and I'll give it to students to work with. And these are surprisingly good. I was stunned when I actually have done some pretty nice in-class demos with this set right here, showing the students how to work with watercolors. So if you really are on a budget, do not be afraid of this set right here. It'll do just fine. So get in there, try whatever. If you have more experience and you're beyond the basic student grade stuff, yeah, go after the Cotman or the Winsor Newton pan sets, or you get yourself a set of tubes and you're going to be in business. So, and then the next thing is the choice of papers. What are you going to work on? Again, as in with the drawing stuff, don't go crazy with the really expensive papers first. The Arche papers or the Baohang. Is that how you pronounce it? Let me look here. I'm looking at Baohang papers. My Midwest pronunciation of it. So those are really good papers. Have a great tooth. I work typically with like 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, no matter what brand it is, whether it's a Strathmore or a Grumbacher, Arche or Baohang, any of those papers. I work with a Dowler, oh, I can't remember the name of it. Dowler Rowney. It's an English paper, I believe. It's a Langston cold press, 300 grams. So it's a really good paper. I buy the good stuff either in pads where you can just flip through and rip them off. Sometimes they come with spiral bound things where you can kind of flip them back over on themselves, almost like a sketchbook format, and or blocks. And the blocks means essentially here's a small short block where all edges are glued down on this. So you'd actually work with this whole pad. And it's stiff, it's rigid, it won't warp and curl on you if that annoys you. So, but you just essentially slide in. This one came with this nice little bone. You can just slide in. There's a spot right up here at the top. You just slide in, and then you just peel the piece when you're done with it. Or if you like working with individual sheets, you can peel it off and then work with it that way. So this is a block, and these are fun. A good student grade paper is the Canson paper. You can find that at Walmart, Hobby Lobby. It doesn't have a lot of tooth. I like it because it's a quick drying paper. A lot of the really good papers are designed to hold moisture and to stay wet, so you can do a lot of the wet on wet stuff. But in a classroom situation where I have a limited amount of time to show a demo and get from the beginning part of it, whatever stages of watercolor I'm working, and get to an end product by the end of class, I do appreciate a faster drying paper. And that Canson paper is a very good paper to do just that. And I've actually discovered I like working with it in my YouTube tutorials as well, because typically I'm under the same time constraint, maybe even a tighter time constraint, shooting a YouTube demo than I am in a class where I typically have an hour and 50 minutes to do something with the students, showing them what the techniques are. So I do appreciate the quick drying aspect of the Canson paper. Now, again, I'll put all these things I'm mentioning here. I'll find the links, some affiliate links. I'll pop them into the product description or the video description, so you can click on them, go in, and make some decisions as to what you want to work on. So, but again, don't get crazy if you're just getting started. You're just trying to learn the fundamentals of watercolor. Don't get hung up on the expensive stuff just yet. So buy some inexpensive student grade papers, some paints, and the last thing I need to cover before the video ends are brushes. What are your brush options? All right, so brushes. Starting out with acrylic and oil painting, you're probably very familiar with the flats and the rounds, and that's typically, a flat. This is an inch flat brush, and I normally have a range of these. I have an inch, half an inch, quarter of an inch, 3/4. These are synthetics, and they're fine. I don't, I've worked with synthetics for a long time. This one's a natural tip brush right there, and these hold a lot of water. This one kind of loads up with water and holds water slightly better than the synthetics. But I am a flat brush. That's what I kind of started working with first with watercolor, was with flat brushes. So I'm very familiar and comfortable with them. But I also have a number of rounds, and I switch over to the rounds. So there's a number 10 round, and I got a whole series of sizes leading down to it. The biggest trick is, and you can tell when your rounds are getting worn out, is when they don't hold a nice tip anymore. So when they start feeling like they're blunted, that's when you need to get a new brush. So this one still holds a nice tip. This one's getting pretty worn. I've used it quite a bit. And then the detail brushes, these whole series of smaller and smaller brushes. And this one's kind of a liner brush, so it really holds a very fine tip. So if you're painting real delicate little wisps of hair or something like that, the liner brushes are really nice for that. We have specialty brushes like a mop. So this is a fairly small number 12 mop right there, and they hold tons and tons of water and pigment and are used quite a bit. I'm trying to get more familiarized and comfortable working with mops, because if you get really good with a mop, you only need one brush because these do come down to a nice tip. You can lay down lots and lots of pigment into shapes and everything and still come in with the tip of it and work with it. So working with flats are fun in that you can lay down big swashes of color. So this is like I said, a 1 inch. I also have like a big background flat right here. This is like a 2-inch wash brush that you can come in, get a lot of pigment mixed up and lay down like skies and backgrounds and things like that. Create gradient wash meshes or meshes. Create gradient mesh. Create gradient washes. I'm confusing my 3D modeling terminology with my watercolor terminology. So, and then lastly, I like having a nice fan brush. These are great for painting trees and things like that. So, all right, so that's a real quick overview of the stuff you're going to need if you're wanting to get started with watercolor. Again, learn how to walk before you run. Don't think it has to be the expensive stuff from the start. Get some student grade, good quality student grade supplies. If out of all of this, if you were going to spend money on some decent things, it would be brushes. So drop some money, and you don't have to have a lot. This is kind of a lot of I mean, you could get by with a good 1 inch and a couple of smaller brushes like this. Right there. You could probably do damn near anything you want with those 4 brushes. So the others are just, extraneous because you can. So, all right. So, hey, I hope this video helped answer some of your questions. Probably raised a lot more questions than you want to admit, but don't worry about it. Keep it simple. Practice these things with whatever supplies you get, and you're going to be good. So, hey, if you got any value out of this video, please give me a like and a subscribe, and keep an eye out for my introductory 3 stages and 4 steps of watercolor to get you up and running for 2025. So, I'll see you in the next video.